Everyone, welcome to our week 3 summary. Just want to talk a little bit about some of the topics we discussed last week. Last week was kind of our heavy duty, difficult topic week from an ethical perspective. So, we talked a little bit about religious objections, right to self determination. Um, Issues with minors, issues related to reproductive rights. We kind of learned about all of these different areas and had some discussion around a couple different areas. But we had discussion specifically about the Terry Schiavo case and some, kind of some discussion around the right to self-determination. And then our paper was, I'm going to look here because our paper was specifically about parents, um, right to self-determination and parents' parental consent, etc. But I think the big thing that seemed to come out of a lot of the discussion in the discussion board, and I haven't taken a look at the papers yet, but one of the big keys is making sure, especially for adults, that your wishes are known from a personal perspective, making sure that your wishes are known to your family, friends, whomever it is that, is kind of tasked with the person that would be tasked with making those decisions if something were to happen to you. And I think a lot of times we don't necessarily think about that if we're younger. Someone Terry Schiavo's age, I'm sure wasn't considering that yet. Because she was 26 years old when she went into cardiac arrest. But unfortunately, even though based on the discussions and everything that occurred in the case, she stated that her husband stated that she had made it clear that she would not want to have been kept alive in a persistent vegetative state, but her parents didn't agree with that, but unfortunately there was no proxy, there was no paperwork, there was nothing to say what her wishes were. So even though we may think we're young, even I think that I'm perhaps too young to have that kind of paperwork at times. It is important because you never know when something could happen where you could be in a car accident, you could be involved in something like occurred with her. I mean, obviously they think that there was some background issue related to an eating disorder or something that caused her cardiac arrest. But you never know what could happen. Could be an accident or an illness or an injury, and you don't know. So it's important to have that kind of those advanced directives in place to protect yourself and your family from those types of situations. So what's also important, and that's it's my personal plea, but what's important is from a health administrator standpoint that we really use our leadership skills to the nth degree. So if we are in a situation where perhaps we have family members that are, at each other's throats because one wants one thing and one wants the other, or we have a situation like the boy that we read about, the one article, Parker Jensen, I think, is who we read about in the classroom, where the family wanted to get another opinion before they went. They were aggressive with chemotherapy, and and the physician didn't agree with that, and they tried to move forward and have custody removed from that family. I think I mentioned in the discussion boards too a case of Christian Scientists where the physician, the patient, child patient, ended up being treated via patients came in. It was an emergency situation. Patients came in. Child received treatment because they were afraid they were going to lose the child if they didn't treat them. and then the physicians actually were going to charge the parents with child abuse or child neglect for not wanting to treat the patient, not wanting to allow treatment of that patient, because the child would have died if the physician felt the child would have died if they hadn't had treatment. So being involved in situations like that and having to manage the administrative side can be difficult, and that's where it's really important that, as I mentioned last week, that we really take off our personal hat and put on our leadership hat, and not make a personal judgment, as clearly sometimes people do, and take the perspective of what does the law say, and what is our policy in our facility, and not to take sides. Like, for example, in the Shivo case, what was really important is that the administrators in those facilities didn't take side with one or the other, with the husband or the family, that they just truly did what they could for the patient, and for either side of the family, when they were there to visit their loved one. So that's what's so important as a leader, is to not take sides and to just make sure that we're following the law and upholding the ethical principles as best we can. So there were a couple of quiz questions. People did really well on the quiz, but there were actually 2 quiz questions that were missed throughout. So I'll just mention those. The first one was, Terri Schiavo had multiple health issues that supported the reason to take her off of life support. True or false? And that was actually false. There really wasn't any significant thing wrong with her. What was really wrong with her was she was in a persistent vegetative state, with really no chance to recover, and so the issue was that she would never regain anything. There was no chance for her to regain any additional further ability to communicate. She was not going to improve in any way, and but what's interesting is that she did not even meet Medicare's criteria for hospice. Like, she was actually well enough to not meet criteria for hospice, but obviously not ever going to improve. So that's kind of the fine line with someone in a persistent vegetative state, that they're not well, but clearly not terminal, because they are being kept alive via all of these different feeding tubes and whatnot. So the answer to that is false. The next one is, Terri Schiavo died from cardiac arrest. And that's true, false also, obviously. And the answer to that was false. Her original issue was caused by a cardiac arrest. She had cardiac arrest, which caused a lack of oxygen to her brain, which eventually caused the persistent vegetative state. But her cause of death was undetermined. So they didn't have the official cause of death was undetermined. And when they did do the autopsy and looked at her brain, there really was, they truly found that there was no chance of her to have recovered, or have any life beyond what she had there. And I don't remember if all of this was in the video or not, but her parents had stated that she actually was moving, and that she was somewhat conscious, and that there was when they did the autopsy, they said there was no possible way that she was any of those things, unfortunately. So the answer to that question is also false. So I've actually just sent out a note. Hopefully you'll see this. So this week we're going to learn quite a bit about HIPAA. HIPAA is another one of the important laws that we must follow, and something important for us to discuss. So we're going to learn a bit about HIPAA this week and have some discussions and a scenario regarding that. We are going to do a synchronous session. And it's actually going to be centered around HIPAA, but we're not going to do it this week. I'll try to do it next week. I usually do it in week 5 or week 6. It's noted in week 4, but it's important that everyone kind of absorbs the HIPAA information before we do the HIPAA synchronous session, because they're case studies that we'll talk about, and then we'll kind of present it, and then you can talk to me a little bit about what you think might be right or wrong in the case study. But so we'll do that. I sent out a note for this week, or for next week, for week 5. I'm actually going to be out of town in week 6, so I'm hoping that we can get one scheduled this week. But if not, maybe at the end of the week in week 6, we might be able to get one there. But if not, hopefully we can get one. Hopefully we can get one scheduled in week 5. At least get the majority of everyone there. And if not, then maybe we can record it and offer it that way as well. So hope everyone has a great week, and we will talk to everyone in the discussion boards. Thanks.